What's up YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. Today guys, we're going to be talking about our camshafts for your 6.0 Powerstroke necessity, or just something some of us that like to make poor financial choices continue to put in them. Before we get into this video, quick guys, fall is officially here. We have our 6.0 Bro merch, making 6 liters great again. One of my favorites. Don't forget some other ones over on the channel. Link down in the description to Teespring. And don't forget the merch shelf that should be right under this video. Click and go check that thing out. 6.0 Bros for free shipping on all of your orders. Oh yeah, that like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell notification thing as well. Now on to the main topic here, 6.0 Powerstroke camshafts. Should you do them? Why should you do them? How expensive are they to actually get in your truck? I'm gonna give you a hint, it's actually a little more money than you think it is. And what the heck do they actually do for your truck? So first thing we're gonna talk about is the why. And the big reason for this, performance aside, is the factory camshaft is super abusive to lifters. The 6.0 and 6.4 Powerstrokes both suffer from higher incidence of lifter failure. I'm not saying it's still the most common thing out there, but you do see it more than a lot of other vehicles, even in a lot of factory trucks, which I don't know why I'm pointing to this because this is not factory. But so one of the first reasons I would say to do this is a level of reliability, and which we're going to tie that in later to cost, because it doesn't mean a whole lot depending on how much it costs to actually do these things. But they are more reliable. The factory one does leave a fair amount of performance on the table over something like a Colt or my current Kill Devil Diesel Stage 2 cam that I'm running in the truck as we speak. The 6.0 that suffers from a lot of airflow restrictions, especially in the cylinder heads, the factory intake manifold, and some of these things are kind of pricey to fix. Fair warning, so is also putting a camshaft in one of these, and I don't understand all the technical details, guys. I can't go over a ton of stuff about the actual camshafts themselves, but as far as a practical version, I can talk a lot about it. I've talked to Jared at Kill Diesel extensively about it years ago, and I've done a lot of research on it. But basically, your valve's going to be open longer, allowing more air to get into that cylinder that really needs it. Also, the factory one's really designed to promote EGR flow for emissions reasons, obviously. Not that putting a camshaft in will stop that, but it does gear it more towards performance, and that's really what we're looking for, along with the reliability aspect of things. Now, a lot of you guys have seen stage 1, 2, 3, 4 out there. What the heck does all of that mean? So typically speaking, I've looked at several different vendors. I'm most familiar with obviously Kill Devil Diesel and Colt cams because they are the ones I've actually run in my truck. So stage 1 camshafts are really geared towards basically a factory replacement. They try to be a little less abusive on the lifters, obviously, and then they also add some performance and lifteration. It's not a super aggressive cam. These are almost always drop-in, although you want to check valve recession and piston protrusion on any build that this is going in, because the Colt Stage 2 cam supposedly a drop-in, and we saw how that worked out for me and my 6-liter. Stage 2 cams are what I have the most experience with, and obviously, like I've said already, I've run 2 different ones, and I'm a big fan of each. Now, I will say this, everything needs to be in spec so you can safely run these. I love these cams, but if they're not going to be drop-in for you, it's going to be a big issue, and it's going to add a lot of expense in the way of building these trucks, depending on what you already have and what your goal is on the build. Now, I will say this, stage 1 cams, especially if you start looking, really are geared towards people just using their truck, optimize things to about maybe 3,500 RPM. And then when you go to the stage 2 cams, typically you lose the most bottom end of your truck. You're not even gonna really realize it, but like, it's not optimized for people at idle or 1,000 RPMs. It's typically north of that, which is really where we spend most of our time driving. You're gonna spend very little time trying to cruise at 1,000 RPM. But they also kind of move that whole performance scale down, so we get better performance up to 4,000-ish, and these are all just generalizations, don't hold these to heart, but really meant for more people that are, I wouldn't say a dedicated street truck because they tow excellent. I've towed with the Colt Stage 2 cam, and it really was phenomenal, the improvements I saw with that setup. I'll put a link to that video somewhere here if you guys want to go check it out when I was towing with the Colt Stage 2 cam. I think a Power Max Turbo back then. It's been a while, I'd have to double check, but excellent setup, and really appreciated the added power and overall performance while not doing any detriment to my fuel economy at the same time. So now we get into stage 3 and 4 cams. I'm gonna lump these guys together because really at this point, you're talking about people that are really dedicated drag racing setups, doing a lot of dyno pulls. They're really geared towards high horsepower builds, people spinning higher RPMs as well. 4,400-ish. There are guys that spin well into the 4,000 in the RPM range on 6 liters. And they, from my understanding, most of them are running stage 3 and 4 cams. You do start to really lose bottom end on these. You're gonna have less drivability around town. Not that you can't do it, but you're gonna lose a little because they're really meant to perform at that higher RPM that somebody that's gonna be racing or doing a dyno pool is gonna see anyway. Unless you're doing like super high horsepower builds like over 800, my personal recommendation is always a stage 2. That's even if you're gonna stick with stock injectors. A stage 2 cam is just such a versatile cam. You can do so much with it, and it's gonna perform excellent. It's gonna spool your turbo really, really fast. You're gonna get rid of lag. In some instances, I've seen better fuel economy as well. In this truck, I was able to get 17 miles per gallon driving around town on a 66 millimeter VGT turbo and 35-inch tires. They weren't quite as wide as these tires, but they were 35 inches tall nonetheless. So good tuning on top of all the mods we're just kind of talking about now. You can get really good fuel economy out of a 6 liter. Now let's talk to the drawback of cams. Any of them, they're not that terribly expensive, like $750-ish. They may have gone up a little since then, but $750, $800 for that. You will want to get new lifters if you are doing this on your truck. I would not skimp in that department. I think lifters are around $300 on killdevildiesel.com. I would also get, make sure your push rods are also matched to your cam profile. You don't want to run a different push rod length than what is required for your lifter cam setup so it all works well together. Now the drawback. The drawback is cost. To put a camshaft in one of these trucks, the transmission has to come out because they insert from the rear of the engine. Your heads have to come off. It is a really expensive job. So I don't typically recommend these for people unless everything's coming apart anyway. Even for a standard head gasket job, I wouldn't recommend necessarily doing everything that, like to put a camshaft in. I'm not saying you can't. I certainly did it on the first build of my truck, but typically where I would focus these on is guys that are doing engine rebuilds, guys that are ordering engines from places like Kill Devil Diesel, Asheville's another popular one. They all offer camshafts, obviously Kill Devil does, I'm running one, but Asheville Engine's very popular. There's a few other companies out there, I'm not gonna go through and list them all, are offering similar advantages in the camshaft department. So if you're doing one, I 100% would recommend getting a camshaft upgrade. You will not regret it. Yes, it is a little extra money, but typically guys rebuilding engines are already getting new push rods, are already getting new lifters. So you're really talking about just the camshaft cost itself. And in that instance, that's it, because the camshaft on a rebuild would have to come in and out anyway. So why not make sure you're getting all the performance you can get, all the airflow, so these trucks run really well. Those of you guys running non-VGT setups or wanting to run fixed geometry turbos, as other people call them, this is for you guys if you're rebuilding an engine. It's going to make a huge difference on the performance you get. And VGT, we're going to see it as well. I can attest to that. But those non-VGT guys are going to get it even more than us, just because they're combating different issues with their trucks. So my really drawback to this is the cost associated with it. It is a tough pill to swallow when you're doing a head gasket job and you want to do this, because it does add a fair amount of cost. So double check with any shop doing this, because it is a lot more expensive to kind of do this. You're adding several hours of labor, plus the part itself. Some places will want to balance it. So there's a lot to factor into all of this, guys. So bear that in mind. Again, one of my favorite upgrades all day long. If I wasn't allowed to upgrade turbos and injectors and stuff like that, and they said, hey, you can have a performance mod, I would have a hard time not making it a camshaft because I think they're that great. And they'll work on factory tuning. You don't have to run a tune with it, so that's another nice thing, especially the stage 2 cams. I'm not sure how there'd be no reason to do a stage 3 or 4 if you weren't doing tuning, but stage 2 cams run perfectly fine. Factory tune, factory injectors, and a factory turbo. They run really nice, actually. So to recap, stage 1 and 2 cams are really going to be for your guys towing heavy, daily driving trucks. That's really where they're geared towards. My personal preference is still that stage 2 cam, but at a minimum, a stage 1 is definitely a good upgrade to do. But again, my recommendation, because they're not more expensive, would be the stage 2 cam. Stage 3 and 4, really your competition builds, your dyno runs, drag racing. I don't know if people are still sled pulling with 6 liters, but that's probably where they would live as well. I know a lot less about sled pulling, so bear that in mind. But the main difference is where like the usable range and RPM kind of kicks in is part of what they're geared towards, and they'll increase airflow and such. So I hope this video kind of helps even some of these things out. And if you guys are looking to do a camshaft, one of my favorite upgrades to do, it's unfortunate how expensive it is to do, but if you're building an engine already, guys, definitely go get a camshaft. You will not regret it at all. They really do run that well, in my opinion. Stay tuned, because we are going to be doing a video of how relevant is the 6.0 Powerstroke in today's world. Obviously, trucks like the 6.7 Powerstroke are giving it more than a little bit of a run for its money, but if you're in the market for a truck, I do still recommend 6.0 Powerstrokes. We're going to talk about why in a very soon to come video, but only after we do a video on our 6.7 Powerstroke, because it's needed. Major update on our 6.0, that's not great news, coming soon as well, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you in the next upload.